My name's Don Schmitt, and I'm an architect, and I work with a wonderful team of architects in our practice, Diamond Schmitt Architects. But what I want to talk about is urban community. We are a very gregarious species. We come together to form urban places, not only producing the value of goods and services, the trade of those services, but we draw support from social connection. We charge our imagination with the collision of ideas. We create culture out of these collisions. The city is a place of gathering and shared experience where the artist meets their largest audience. And we draw strength from the energy of that urban community. In fact, the experience of urban life and its institutions is really central to the way we live at this moment, more so than at any time in history. The great concentrations of us are in cities. How do we shape these places that define how we live now? Do we believe the widely held idea that cities are a kind of grand accident, an uncontrolled consequence of growth and change? City form is always determined by a multiplicity of decisions made by those who govern, who finance, who plan, who develop. Increasingly, however, that multiplicity of decisions is profoundly affected by all of us who join the conversation and by those who actually live in the city. There have been moments in history and places which demonstrate the building of cities on occasion as one of man's greatest achievements. In certain locations and circumstances, the forces that shape urban form interact with such clarity that a place of profound character is shaped. In Ottawa, in the early 19th and early 20th century, the exuberance coming from the strengths of a young country built precincts in this city that were fresh and daring. Edmund Bacon wrote about Ottawa in a survey about cities. None was more glorious or more expressive of a vast regional concept than the capital of Canada. He talks about the relationship to the wild landscape, the escarpment along the river, the precincts of the government buildings, the crown, and the urban counterpoints in the town. He refers to, quote, the superb way in which the design of the pyramidal parliamentary library dominates the sweep of the Ottawa River, establishing a pivotal point in space, asserting a place of community within that, in counterpoint to this great, wild Canadian landscape. The city is not static. This city is not static. How we live now is shaped by the continuous adjustment of our priorities, our cultural expectations, our attitudes about openness, accessibility, diversity in all our communities. I want to talk about 6 institutions and how those institutions transform as part of a continuous process of renewing how we live. The arts. How can we open up what were cloistered institutions to embrace the kind of broad and more diverse society that we are developing? How, with heritage and governance and the politics of governance, do we open up what are possible to be new uses layered together with heritage and complexity, creating new meaning and through the continuum of heritage? How do we understand in science and technology the history of the inventions and technology that enabled our first and second industrial revolutions and are the foundations on which we are beginning the third revolution of a new green economy? Sustainability. How do we look at natural systems which are beginning to re-emerge as powerful in the city as systems, not simply green space, but as systems that heal? How do we think about learning? The learning and discovery is continuous, active, lifelong, experiential, outside the class, and creating community. And how in the new library and Library and Archives Canada here in Ottawa, can we create a crossroads of community and gathering in a digital age? Let's begin with arts. At the National Arts Centre, the country built a remarkable icon of brutalist enclosed architecture 50 years ago, primarily a place accessed by cultural and political elites. The transformation reconnected to the landscape was built out of wood structure, opened and created lobbies of living space 16 hours a day, yoga in the morning, daycare, talks, performance. We connected to Confederation Square, connected to the city, opened to the community, and created something that was truly national in its beacon that broadcasts across the country. Adaptation. Ottawa brought rail into the center of the city, into the parliamentary precinct. Interestingly enough, at a time when, and that rail disappeared at a time when rail is re-emerging. But when the rail was removed, the station was closed and became derelict. But these extraordinary public spaces can be honored in a way that both captures history, but also revives in a new way with the new Senate, heritage enclosure, clad in bronze, pixelated with the iconic photography of Canadian landscapes, the great landscapes of the West Coast and the East Coast and the North. At the Ingenium on St. Laurent, the Center for Collections, Conservation, and Curatorial Practice at the Museum of Science and Technology is a cabinet of curiosities, a Wunderkammer, which houses an incredible collection of artifacts which really drove the first and second industrial revolutions. And it's a place of magic where you can understand what preceded the technologies and innovation on which we continue to build. We know we are in a climate emergency. We know that our children have demanded that we wake up. We know we have the ability to eliminate hydrocarbon use. We know we can reduce our carbon footprint to zero. At the University of Ottawa, we demonstrated living biofilter technology which can reduce indoor air pollutants by 90% and create a community crossroads at the center of the academic precinct. It's a place of beauty where community forms, and it marks that place in the campus. We know that a place of learning and collaboration at Algonquin College can be open, give space to the understanding that much of what we learn is outside the classroom, in the gathers and serendipitous interactions which shape us as individuals and as members of society. And finally, we can create, through the new library and Library and Archives Canada, a crossroads in a way that creates accessibility, that connects with landscape, that has as its heart a town square, that connects to the landscape and the distant views, but is a space shaped by community, shaped by accessibility as a crossroads. So in revitalizing these 6 institutions, we change the way we live. Thank you.